Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to have you join us today. My name is David Bruff. I'm the editor of Jewellery Outlook, a digital magazine, and I'm accompanied today by Bina Goenka. Glad to have you with us, Bina. Hello.
Hi, David. How are you? Hello, everybody. Everybody in India.
I don't get Bina's sound there. I hope that can you? I don't hear you very well at the moment. Say hello to us all, Bina.
Hi, David. How are
Oh,
you?
hi. Good.
Hello, David. Hello, Jay, Nehal, everybody in London, India, New York, Canada. I have a lot of people who are on today. So thank you for joining us today.
So we're going to have a lovely conversation today about Bina's journey as a jewellery designer and what drives her inspiration, a little bit about how she works and the team of craftspeople who work with her. And it should be very interesting. Bina is very well known, particularly in India. I mean, she's known as the jeweler to the industrialists and to Bollywood, sort of the elite, if you like, of the customers in India. And her pieces are admired for their exquisite use of colored gemstones and pearls, and they are greatly appreciated around the world. But Bina, if I could just ask you, how did you get into jewelry design? What was the trigger for you at the start?
So I was actually a lawyer, and I practiced law for like a year and a half and got married. And from there on, you know, it was the family, children, everything else that takes up your time. And soon I realized that I needed to do something for myself. So when my children moved into boarding, that's the time that I actually started indulging in my interest in jewelry. And
tell us a little bit about the early days as a designer, what it was like and how your business evolved.
so, you know, one of the most important things which I have to say, David, is I started a career, but I started a career in like garments, and I actually started it with, you know, a very small amount of money, approximately like 350 pounds. And from there, I made a lump sum of supposing 25,000 pounds. And that was my first investment into jewelry. And I made some correct moves, some mistakes, and that's been my journey. And it's taught me a lot. I actually began, when I began jewelry, I started doing it for a few friends and, you know, because I was also very interested in how jewelry gets done. So to actually give you an idea, here in India, we have, you know, the workmen are called babus, and they come home and they take, you know, designs from you, which they go back to their factories, and then they work on those designs. So you have no input in what they're doing. And as you know, that jewelry gets sold by the gram, you know, how many grams of gold. So that's the labor. So they keep it as heavy as possible. And so when I began my brand, you know, I moved all this aside, and I, earlier on, actually, I did everything that everybody does. You know, I did the same kind of jewelry. Soon I looked at myself and I said, what am I doing? It doesn't interest me. There is nobody who, everybody's doing the same thing. So why should anybody want anything? Everybody's got everything. And that made me realize that I need to do something different. And I started working completely out of the box and didn't follow any industry norm. And that was a surprise to the whole industry. Actually, that's actually what shook up the whole industry, which was complacently making jewelry, you know, as they used to before. And when I started, I realized that every time I went to a wedding and I wore a pair of earrings, while, you know, just while reaching, I'd put them on, and within half an hour, 20 minutes, I'd remove them. So that was what made me delve into how could I make earrings lighter. But obviously, if you have a babu who's going to come and take things from you and then do it by gram, it's not going to work out. So I took a small place at a factory. I rented a small area, and I hired one craftsman, two craftsmen, and that's the beginning of my journey. I began with 2 people, and then went on to 6, and then 13, 14, 40. Today we are 60 of us. And
your atelier is in Mumbai, isn't it? Could you tell us a little bit about the atelier?
yes, so you know, I'm like just outside Seeps in Mumbai, and that's the jewelry district of Mumbai.
Yeah, sort of the tax-free diamond factories are there, aren't they?
Yes, they're all there, and I'm just outside that. And why is it that I went and put myself near this area? Is because I thought all the fine craftsmen are going to come over there. And so I'm going to get a lot of people who will come to work for me. And that search of mine has gone on for now 20 years. And I have a very limited.
How are your craftspeople doing under lockdown in India? I mean, are you able to look after them, and what's their situation right now?
Yes, so my craftsmen are an extension of me. And before I look after myself, I look after them. So I'm completely clued in about their eyes, their health, their family's health, their children, everything. And
they're doing okay?
They're doing very well, thank you. And I initially, when the lockdown happened, and I realized that, you know, because they're craftsmen, there's an anxiety in them about their needs and their salaries and how are they going to, so I made calls to all of them, told them to call up each other, and I said, relax, do yoga, and, you know, take it easy, and nothing's going to happen. You're fine, keep yourself safe, and we'll meet soon. So
yeah, and of course the lockdown has just been extended by another 2 weeks in India, so it'll go on for quite a bit longer. We'll talk about the lockdown a little bit later in more detail, and also in terms of how you have been working during the lockdown. But before we go into that, let's look at some of the images of your jewellery and talk about your inspiration as a designer. So if we could perhaps start with the first piece, show the image of the first piece, and then maybe you could talk through a little bit about what inspires you as a designer, and how you have created some of these pieces.
okay,
so I think that, yeah, we're going to go back.
Okay, so this is it's a gecko, this piece that you're seeing, and it's a brooch actually. His name is Richard, and this is one of my favoriteest pieces. It marked the beginning of brand Bina Goenka going into art jewelry, and the reason why he's one of my favoriteest is because he was born in March, and that's the time when your year ending happens. 2008, I think that he was born, and in that year end time, I was a new person in business, and I said, okay, it's year end, so all the books are going to close. So these are the things that are left with me today. So let me create what I can with that. So he's from all the leftover of the year's purchases. And so that's why he's very important, because, you know, that's how he got made. Nothing was sourced to make him.
Could you tell us a little bit about the gemstones in this piece?
So there are tanzanites, there are, you know, what you see are diamonds, they're white, and then you see the brown diamond slices. So when you get a rough, you get some absolutely VVS top quality stones, and then you have some, you know, because it's a stone, it's a rough. So you get slices of these, what you see in color. And
Anju Jain, Bina, is asking, what are the pretty pinks?
Okay, so the pretty pinks are star rubies, yeah. So the pretty pinks are star rubies from Vietnam. The blue is tanzanites. The green is emerald. And we have some red coral over there, yellow diamonds, and white diamonds, green emeralds, yellow diamonds, yes.
Would you say you have a favorite gemstone?
Have some sapphires over there also, yes.
Would you say you have a favorite gemstone that you work with?
Yes, I love rubies. I love emeralds. I love pearls. I love pearls, rubies, emeralds.
You featured in the Joanna Hardy book about rubies, didn't you? Could you tell us a little bit about how you featured in the book?
So how did I come to feature in the book? Just
yes,
by
what pieces were featured in the book?
So there is a very beautiful earring, which is actually not here today. And it's like, it's a long earring. It's like an icicle drop. And that's made by all the slices, the ruby slices that I had got. And we managed to put them all together in a manner where we don't see any gaps in the earring, and which was a task, because you don't get slices cut, and we could not cut them. We'd lose so much material and it would make it all very expensive. So that's how that earring was formed.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you source gemstones? I mean, do you get them from dealers, or do you go to shows, or do you even go to the mines sometimes?
So yes, Gemfields is one of my favorite, and I've been with them for very, very long. I do a lot of work with them and for them, and I buy rough from very, very known dealers, because I'm very particular about sustainability and getting the money to the miners in the way that it should go. So we are all very particular about all these things now. And so I don't have anybody who can, randomly approach me to sell something I won't buy. Yeah. And so then I have pearl dealers who I've met and made friends with at the fair. So all the dealers are my friends. I have very few of them. I have a clutch full of dealers who I work with only, and no more than that. And I don't.
About shows, do you go to the shows? I mean, for example, would you go to Hong Kong show and buy gems there?
Yes, I go to shows. I make new friends. I meet my old friends. It's my life, and it's the only way to meet them. So, and
okay, let's move on to the second slide.
Okay, so over here, David, is, very, very beautiful coral, and it's very, very fine strings of coral, and you see the branches that have been put together as it's an art piece actually. So I do diamonds, rubies, emeralds, etc., and then I do art also. So this is a completely an art piece. The earrings have got emeralds and coral flowers, and all sustainably sourced.
So is that red Mediterranean coral we're looking at?
Yes, you're looking at Mediterranean coral.
What else do we see in the images?
Colombian emeralds over there. And actually, there's only Colombian emeralds. There are no Zambian emeralds in this.
Yeah. That would not be Gemfields emeralds. Is that right?
No, not Gemfields. These are from Colombia, from my suppliers, my dealer friends. And in fact, I bought over almost everything that I could possibly find in cut stones in emeralds from Colombia, because I work with them a lot, and I keep needing them. So, one of my favorite suppliers.
You clearly are a fabulous art jeweler. Could you tell us a little bit about the process of how you create a piece, from the sketches on? You start with a sketch, don't you?
So I start with a sketch, but actually I never start with a sketch, David. That's wrong. I actually start in my head. So, whenever the thought arises, I capture the thought and I put it down on paper. I'll get up from my sleep, or at whatever time, or in between, a conversation, and I'll just, jot it down, whatever I've thought at a restaurant or wherever, so that I can grab that thought back when I'm alone by myself, and I can put it down. And since I know, and I buy everything on my own, I know every material that is there in my inventory, and along with prices, etc. And so that gives me a very good command over the design. And I have everything ready in my mind before I reach the office. And once I've reached there, I call for the material on my table, and that's how we begin the process. The design is a rough sketch, and the workers and me have worked so long together that it's very easy for us to understand the flow of design. And you have to understand that, in India, everything is not three-dimensional. It's all flat. So it's all cut from a flat sheet. They cut the shape and then they make the prong over there. So it's all flat, 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 flat. But that's another thing where my brand moved away from that, and we are completely dimensional.
Yeah. Just to interject, I saw a question from Anju Jain then asking, where is your boutique? It's in the Grand Hyatt, Mumbai, isn't it?
Yes.
We'll talk about the boutique a little bit later on after we go through the slides. But if we could go through the third slide and tell us about this piece.
So this is a very, very beautiful Colombian emerald piece. Everything Colombian in this. This is what I'm actually wearing today. And these are some of the few pieces that I keep at home. And, when I have guests for dinner and all that, and you're dressing up, because I have not expected to be on Zoom with you, David. And so I had to go through my whole inventory to see what is it that I can put on. And so these are Colombian emeralds and diamonds. And I only use the absolutely best in diamonds, only BBS and DEF color.
How do you source diamonds? Is that through a dealer, the dealers you know, or?
No, I don't have. So in every field, whether it be rubies, whether it be emeralds, whether it be Colombian emeralds, whether it be conch pearls, whether it be natural pearls, I will have 1 or 2 people only. And I may know a lot of more people who will be working on the same material, but I don't expose myself to purchases from them because I don't know. I have to go back and, find the person if something goes wrong. And that kind of guarantee I will not get from anywhere. So even where my diamonds are concerned, I have very specific supply and from only 2 people. So if it is...
So just to reiterate, it's a very important point about your jewellery. I mean, you strongly believe, don't you, in sustainability and knowing exactly your supply chain.
Yes. You have to understand that from mine to market, if you don't know the KYC of your material, which is what is the most important thing about jewelry, that you have to know which is the mine where it came from, which is the time that it came from. If it came out from any old jewelry, then which auction did it come out from? And so this gives you the actual route for the, the jewelry happens later, the art pieces, everything else, the value and you have to understand exactly where the material came from. If I'm not sure of the source and the supply, then I have nothing to convince my clients about. So that would be taking away from a lot, because for me, my relationship with my clients worldwide is sacrosanct. And that's the only reason why I don't indulge in many people's supply.
Okay. So tell us about this piece here.
This is from, from the South Seas, South China Sea. It's a clam, and these are clams. The interesting thing about clams is that they're available. You get a lot of them. I have a supplier who is I have 2 suppliers who are from Bangkok and, Hawaii, from whom I get them. These pearls are called, they're very different. They're not seen very often. People don't have much knowledge about them, so they don't use them very. My favorite pearls because they are white. The unique thing about them is that they have like an eye. So when you point a light at them, you'll actually see the striations of an eye in them. And that's, you can't replicate them. They can't be fake. They can't be made, because the minute you see the striations, you'll know that this is, a natural pearl. In fact, even for conch, the minute you see the striations, you know that it's not possible. So where the natural pearl industry, you can have farmed and etc., all that has failed where these are concerned.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your fascination for natural pearls? I mean, from my perspective, I go to a lot of the high value jewellery auctions, or used to before the lockdown anyway, the Christie's and the Sotheby's high value auctions in Geneva and London and so on. And I've seen an extraordinary increase in prices for natural pearls over the last few years. What to you is the appeal of natural pearls?
So, natural pearls were, up in 2018, very high, and then went down because of the farming, etc., of pearls. But today, there is hardly anything available, I would say. There is very, very little that comes up. In fact, in the conch, I don't think very much has come up. So anything from estate jewelry, which is coming for resale, etc., that's where the pieces come from. And in fact, all the, Mother Nature has, been a bit angry. So there have been too many storms, etc. So what has happened is all the beds are now, it takes 4 years for that, once it is, once the germination has happened, it takes 4 years for that to even come into the smallest pearl, and then it
I presume the pollution of the oceans is also sort of countering the ability of the likelihood of finding any larger natural pearls.
We have overfished the pearls. You know, we've gone and we've, you know, just gotten everything out, and that's all over. Now, whatever is deeper inside, because of the storms, you know, the disturbance that it's caused, that the pearls are not, you know, growing comfortably. And this kind of conch pearl needs at least 10 years to mature and get the right color. It needs more sunlight, this, that. So once I understood the process, and, you know, there are millions and millions and millions of, you know, sperms which have, you know, gone in, and, you know, but very few actually reach a stage before they are eaten, before they are killed, before they are destroyed, before the storms have destroyed them. Very, very few. So we're not finding very much now. And, you know, it's become so dangerous to, you know, the fishermen go and they get it from the sea, and they have only 2-3 points of contact. So if you're one of the contacts and you get a call from them saying that, you know, I found something, then you have to be, you know, it's very difficult to get to Mexico or wherever, you know, it would be available, and take your money with you from the bank and to be able to do the purchase. The same goes for emeralds. It's not an easy task. These people, the dealers and the people who handle it in between, they put their lives at risk. We rarely understand what they go through to be able to, and then you have to buy that. You don't know whether it's real or not real. In your judgment, you've understood it is. You then have to give it to SSEF or any of the houses which value the pearl as natural, and then you know that you've got something.
I'm actually looking forward to interviewing a diver who works in Bahrain. I'll be writing a piece for the Bahrain Institute of Gems and Pearls, Danat, in the next few months, and interviewing a diver. So it'll be very interesting to get the diver's perspective on how he can find natural pearls. So let's look at the next slide.
So this is very interesting, David. So all my life in jewelry, like I've had this thought that I want to create something architectural also. So as every jeweler wants to explore, every designer wants to explore, not a jeweler. Jeweler is different. A designer wants to explore every realm of jewelry. So in that is art jewelry. It's, you know, with this and that and the other. It's like, I don't do normal jewelry. I don't do a normal necklace with diamonds or any rubies or anything. I don't do anything that's normal, because I think that there are too many players in that field and they're very happy where they are. So this is something that I said, how do I put a globe on my ear? And how do I make the globe light? And how do I make it larger than life so that it appears like, you know, the universe? You know, this is a planet actually. So I've created a whole galaxy. I have different ones. I have Mars, I have Saturn, I have Venus, I have Jupiter, I have lots of them. But this one is Mercury, and it won the award for the smallest planet. And it's actually the technicality. It won the award for the architecture of how it was put together, and the technicality of the way it functions, you know, the way it opens and closes. And Wallpaper magazine was gave me this award for this piece.
Fantastic. Okay.
I wanted to thank Wallpaper magazine anyways, Kara, for this.
Very good. Let's go on to the next slide.
So this is, you know, the dark brown black pearl is a natural pearl. It's a Baroque, and nobody would buy it. It's full of air, and it's puffed up like this in that formation, and hollow a little bit, not heavy. So nobody would buy it, and, you know, nobody would find it interesting. But anything that nobody wants is what I want. So that's my, you know, USP. So I bought this and I sat down with it and I thought, what should I do? What should I do? So like that, I have a huge inventory of material. And so then when I came across one of the farmed Baroques, you know, so the other one that you see, the white one, is a farmed Baroque pearl. So I decided that, okay, this is a good yin and yang together. And so I put them both together in the form of a buck bead ring. And the pearls down below on the band are all natural pearls.
Let's talk a little bit about the themes of your inspiration. Nature clearly has appeared in quite a few of your designs, but the themes of your inspiration are varied, aren't they? I mean, you're interested in architecture. Tell us a little bit about the various types of inspirations for you as a designer.
So, so very interestingly, like I do animals, I do a lot of different things. I don't stick to one genre of work. And it's whatever interests me, David. Like during lockdown, I've been sitting on the birds are flying around so peacefully. It's like they own the world. And you can watch them and you can recognize them and you can, get onto their backs and, fly the universe.
You have a view, don't you, of the sea link, the great bridge
Yes.
that
Yes.
goes by. Do
Yes.
you see the flamingos from where you live, or not around there?
Not really in this area, but there are lots of other birds, not just flamingos. So there are some white birds, there are kites. I research about the birds. Every bird that I see, I take a picture and I start searching about it. I search the habitat, the lifestyle. It could be anything. It could be a crow. It could be anything. I have to know everything. So.
Would you say this sort of resurgence of nature that we're seeing through the lockdown is a source of inspiration for you? I mean, nature.
It's the most beautiful time actually for me. It's a very sad time for the world. And, you have to be resilient enough to find in that sadness that, you're unable to go out, you're unable to do anything. But I think we have all emerged stronger. We found things that we could do and we are happy doing with that time. Where I'm concerned, I get uninterrupted time to design anything that I want. And since I have a great elephantine memory of material, so it's all with me and I know exactly what I'm going to do the minute lockdown gets over. My workers are also very, very clued with what I'm working. They all know, when I do a design, it also carries the name of the people who are going to be involved in that piece. So who's the master craftsman? Who are the junior craftsmen along with him in this? And then likewise on different craftsmen and different juniors. So I have to delegate work. So my work actually, my artwork and my architectural work. So I have different kinds of craftsmen, some who are very good at this, some who are very good at that. And, sometimes they all work together when we need it, but generally it's like this.
There's a question from Amog Chachad, who's asking whether or not you use CAD in your jewelry making.
I never use that. I never use CAD because my mind, the CAD is in my mind. It's everything. There's a kaleidoscope in my mind. It keeps churning out new designs. And as I'm working on the piece also, I may be changing my mind again and again and again till I find such perfection that I will let it complete. And,
Okay. So this is the last piece of the early sequence of slides we're going to look at. Tell us about this ring.
So this is an emerald ring and it's a Colombian emerald. And I wanted to do it very differently. And I was very keen that I don't follow the norm. There's a particular part of gold that you see, which I'm not too happy with. And I would have loved pearls on the underside also. So it's got all natural pearls. It's got diamonds. It's got yellow diamonds. And it's literally it's so resonating India and the craftsmanship in India, the embroidery, the beautiful work that Indian craftsmen can do. And that's actually, this is India for me.
Yeah, just a quick word to the attendees. We are going to go to a Q&A, probably at around about the 45-minute point. So please do submit your questions through the Q&A channel, and I'll pick those up in the last 15 minutes. So, Bina, going back to this piece, your pieces are very much statement pieces, aren't they? I mean,
yes.
you seldom seem to do very small pieces. Could you tell us more about that? Why you like to do statement pieces?
I really can't say why I do statement pieces because I do very silly small pieces. So it's not my genre of work, and I know that there are hundreds of people who do smaller pieces, and it's what my clients want. I put forward, and it's like a client and me, and it's a synergy between the two of us where there is such a completion of So the person who wants to find me will find me from anywhere. I continue to do the work that I do. When I'm working with bespoke pieces with clients, then I listen to everything that they have to say. And I listen and I understand, because they are the people who are going to be wearing my pieces and they know best. And so if I need to explain something to them, then I will put it in. But mostly I work in complete cohesion with my client.
Right. Could you tell us a bit more about your relationship with your clients? I mean, in general terms, who they are. I mean, we're talking about essentially private clients from big industry and Bollywood a little bit, but essentially these are people who can splash out on fabulous pieces. Could you tell us a little bit about, in general terms, how your relationship works with your clients and how you work with them to create a piece according to what they would like?
So, David, it's very interesting because of my years of experience with clients. I know that every client has a distinct and individual personality. And very few of my pieces can traverse from here to there, to there, to there. Everybody, it's made only for them. It's their persona, it's their personality. It's made to fit their neck or their ear and in their lifestyle, in the clothes that they wear. So whenever I get a client who chooses a thing, supposing on Net-a-Porter, I don't know the client, but I will definitely research the client, understand, look at the look of the person, how do they look, what do they wear, what's their lifestyle like, and then from what they have chosen, I will further my, relationship with them.
Okay. So if we could look next at the hibiscus piece. There it is. So this is a very important piece that was presented at the Sotheby's In Bloom exhibition in New York City, I believe it was, in May 2019.
Yes.
Could you tell us, Bina, a little bit about this piece and also a little bit about your relationship with Sotheby's, how that started and what led to you exhibiting this piece in Bloom?
Okay. So, Carol Woolton of Vogue, so she wrote to us and she sent us an email saying that this is what she wanted to do. And she was putting together a whole In Bloom exhibition with Frank Everett of Sotheby's, and wanted us to be part of that. And so when I was very excited. Anything is exciting for me. And excited because it's a challenge. I was doing a very, very beautiful lilium at that time. And I said, okay, I don't have enough time to complete this lilium, but let me just break up the lilium and take away everything that I require and try to do something else. So I turned around and swiveled on my table, and I had, the Ganeshi that you see over here behind me. And so that's my God. So I turned around and I looked and I saw this hibiscus flower lying there. I picked it up, I studied it, and that was it. And that's how this, started. And interestingly, this can be separated and made into a brooch. And, the branch can be worn with many attachments. It's not restricted to just this. You can wear this if you want, but you can put on anything almost. It has to be fitted in over there, and you can do it all by yourself. The important thing over here is that this was actually done with coral. My first, I had bought antique coral from Thailand. And when I spoke to my friends in America, they said, no, Bina, you can't send coral to America because it's just banned and it's not allowed. And I said, okay, but it's sustainably sourced, this, that, and all. But for me to produce the paperwork, we didn't have that kind of time. So I said, okay, let this be now. Let me look at the coral. And so I stopped the entire factory from working, and I put together people, craftsmen, to create these twigs. And it's actually, if you see the twigs, they're branches, and they're all put together. So wherever you see joints, actually you can't make out that there are joints, but wherever you see those, there's a roughness and all, it's because it's a branch, and that's how it's meant to be. After I created that, I realized that it was not strong enough to take the weight of anything. Like, so that's the time that I started inserting pipes all through, which ran from one end to the other, but you can't see it. And it, because they are all running in the hollow. And then we did the clips and the springing and all that. And that's how it was. A very, very tedious process. And right till the end, we didn't know whether the flower would look this, you know, as radiant as it's looking, how, you know, because that all is gold, and I wanted a very original kind of color. So I worked on a 22 karat color on top of 18 karat in the stem. So that's how you got this bright gold color. And
what feedback did you receive for showing this piece? From the press, for example, you got quite a bit of press coverage.
I, you know, like I was very happy when I went for the event in London, and unfortunately for the event in UK, in New York, I, you know, my visa ran out. But when I went to London, and there was Dolce & Gabbana, and there was everybody. There were some antique pieces. There were all the big brands over there. And I was very, very, very happy with my work. And that's it's just your own satisfaction.
Well, I remember highlighting it in an article for Jewellery Connoisseur, part of the Rappaport group. It's a magnificent piece.
Yes.
If we could then go on to the next slide and talk a little bit about your work under lockdown. To tell us about this piece.
So, yes. So you see that, you know, there are two flowers of pearls. And the pearls, when you'll actually see this, is the pearls look like they've just been poured into a cap, and that's it. And then you have natural pearls which are leading from there. And the center stone can be a stone of your choice. It can be an emerald, a ruby, or anything that you know, Paraiba, whatever you choose to put in. So
how have you found the, you know, lockdown as a period for working and finding inspiration? Have you been working pretty hard throughout this period? Have you found that because there are fewer distractions, you've actually been working maybe more focused perhaps on design than in non-lockdown, than in a non-lockdown period?
Yes, and I work on design, and then I write down notes, as you can see everywhere that there are notes written, you know, what is to come there, what is to come there. And if you'll see some other notes, you'll know the names of the people who are going to work on this piece when lockdown is over. And what's the length of the piece? It's supposed to be worn casually at home, or, you know, when you have important guests, because with lockdown, we're not going to be going out to weddings and all that. So it's a important dinner at home, and that's when you can wear it. And I'm actually focused on making people wear jewelry more often at home and in their natural surroundings. They have beautiful, I have industrialists, very big industrialist families as my clients worldwide. So, you know, most of their entertaining is done at home. And I don't just only plan jewelry for weddings. I do it as it's their lifestyle. So I keep that in mind. And there are smaller pieces, there are larger pieces, there are one-off pieces like these. And, you know, that's how.
You think when people eventually will look back on this lockdown period, they will see it as a period of a great burst of new creativity?
You know, yes, actually, you'll actually see my creativity. I could not put it out today, but, you know, in the coming year, whenever the lockdown is over, you'll see what I have actually created during this period. And all my keystones I've already worked on. The designs are frozen and just waiting to go.
Okay, so if we could just take that image down and reposition ourselves. Talking about the end of the lockdown, or when the period of lockdown eases, whenever that may be, what do you think will go through the psychology of the collector or the client, the buyer? Do you think we're going to see a sudden burst of so-called revenge shopping, or do you think it will take a while to come through before the demand comes back?
No, in fact, I don't think, you know, all the collectors realize that this is the time to invest in gemstones. And so just investing in the gemstone may not be enough, because you have to have a great gemstone, you have to have great design, and you have to have great craftsmanship. So the finest jewelry is made out of these, a combination of these three things. And I'm sure that all my clients everywhere understand this. As I said, that the mood today is not for them to buy, but the minute that lockdown changes and they get back to normal life, their businesses are anyways on. Some of them are on, most of them are on. And what happens then is that they also realize that they have to give back to the people, because this is not, only coming to the brand. It comes from the brand to the, there's a synergy, and it goes right up to the miners, then the people who are buying the material, the dealers, the cutters. So, you're not just looking after these people, you're looking after the people in Zambia, you're looking after the people in Colombia, the gem dealers, everybody. So you have to keep that cycle flowing. And that's the most important and optimistic thing about this, that we must.
Yeah. I mean, were you heartened when you heard the news about the Sotheby's sale of the Cartier Art Deco bracelet, the Tutti Frutti bracelet, for $1.3 million, which was the highest price ever achieved for any jewel sold at auction. A matter of days ago. I mean, the fact that the Sotheby's have reported very strong online auction results over the last few weeks during the lockdown, what does that signify to you about the state of the high jewelry market?
So the high jewelry market is not going anywhere. The high jewelry market doesn't really, because high jewelry is not in abundance. Anything that is not in abundance will only become more important. There is an abundance, then the importance is less. So that's my understanding of it. And I don't think that I'm going to be, or, people who are doing fine work, where handcraft and people working and hours and hours of laborious labor is put into that piece. I don't think that, that's, 100 years from now, you will be in the history book saying that at this, how you have the Spanish flu, like that, there was this thing. And this was the thing that was created at that time. And this is that period in time when people sat down and created this and bought this, and this becomes history for you. So when 100 years later, when the next auction by Sotheby's and Christie's happened, they would say, this was a piece made during lockdown time, etc., bought by some whatever. So.
I mean, it occurs to me, I mean, if you look back at, say, the period of the Great Depression, the last really very major global economic downturn, that also coincided with an era of the golden age of Hollywood, the 1930s, the period of Art Deco and jewelry. Beautiful jewels were created in that period. People loved glamour and beauty, didn't they? And it's a kind of escapism, I suppose. Do you sense that we might go through this again now, through this period?
After World War I, after World War II, every time that there's been a problem, then there's been a financial depression, then again there's a rapid rise. Then so there have been so many ups and downs in the industry. But it's like a ball which falls down and goes up. And that's how I think it is. Yes, in a time like this, it's very important that we look after our people, we care for them, we make sure that they're safe, and we, however long it takes for this lockdown to get over, it doesn't matter.
Very good. So we're now going to go to the Q&A, the last 15 minutes. And I'll just pick up a few questions that I can see on the screen here. We have a question from Kavya Agarwal, who's asking, how is the market for high-end jewelry in India, and what do you predict for the future?
I predict big gemstones, important gemstones, and I think less is more. And that's, jewelry in India, it's in our nature, it's in our culture to wear jewelry. And I don't think that's going to change. But yes, for this year and this year and a half, or however long this lockdown will get over, but there is a social distancing that will happen. And so we have to create work which will work in that social distancing time, till a time when you're, healthy enough to come back and meet people without masks, etc.
A question from Shruti, who's asking, how important is PR in the jewelry business? And also, could you tell us a little bit about your social media activity? You're very effective on Instagram. Do you like to use Instagram as a way of communicating, the quality of your pieces to an audience?
Yes, my daughter Avanti actually is brilliant at this, and it's honestly not me, because I design jewelry, I manufacture jewelry, I sell jewelry, and Avanti is the actual person who, she's the brain behind all this. And in fact, all my movement in the jewelry world in the past 5 years has been thanks to her. And it's been systematic, my approach, my PR, and everything is handled. Everything that has to do with my brand is guided by her.
It's important, particularly during this lockdown period, to be visible, isn't it?
It's very important to be visible. And yet, we have a problem of we have a problem over here, because we have so much of design that, and India is a hub of plagiarism. So it's a little bit difficult to put so many things out. And, but Instagram has been a great opportunity, and it has, led to many, many sales. It has given me clients from all over the world. And sometimes I thought, maybe there's a virus or something, and why is this person contacting me? And I have, rebooted my entire system. I've changed the hard disks and everything, thinking that there's a virus trying to, and I have had, people contacting me from so many places in the world, like Uganda and everywhere. So,
Can we talk a little bit about legacy? Have any of your pieces been auctioned by the high jewellery houses like Sotheby's, Christie's and Bonhams so far? Secondly, going forward in time, in terms of legacy, would you like to imagine that your pieces will appear periodically on the secondary market, in the auctions market?
Yes,
people will remember your talent.
100%, they will appear in the secondary market in auction houses, because you make jewelry, so that when you make jewelry and you sell it to somebody, they are just the caretakers at that time for that piece. That pieces are going to outlive them and so many others after them. But it has to be able to outlive that time. So of course my pieces are going to be, I work on the pieces knowing that 100 years later they have to be relevant. And the design has to be relevant. It has to be, everybody says their jewelry is timeless and this and that, but we launched our brand so many years back. It's now 13 years, but I've been doing jewelry since 20 years and, 25 years actually. And we've actually, one of our pieces, one of our animals has been selected for a museum, the National History Museum in New York, for a year. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity also.
Okay. Kumar is asking, is it good to work in collaboration with fashion designers? So what synergies do you potentially see between high jewellery and fashion? Where can that work?
Yes, so there's a great synergy between fashion designers and high jewellery. And it can be, but it all depends, on whether we are creating the look together or we are creating two separate looks. And, I've never done a collaboration up till today. And because I have very few pieces, my pieces are almost sold before they're ready. So, I've not had that opportunity. Earlier on, when my brand was new, and for the last the first 4 years of my brand launch, I did have that much material that I could do, collaborations, or I did that fashion show and all. But going further from there, I see that my jewelry has become, it's taking longer and it's getting sold. And, there are just key pieces that I'm keeping back in my inventory as my archive pieces for my brand. And so that, I'm remembered much after that.
A question from Samina and Jum, who's asking, what about collaborations with new and up-and-coming designers? And also, if I could ask you, I mean, is now a good time during lockdown to launch oneself as a jewelry designer?
I think, when you want to launch yourself as a jewelry designer, any time is a good time. So you have to find opportunity in every time. There's never going to be a right time. And there's, your mistakes will be wrong, but the time is never wrong. The time will be always right. It will guide you. It will teach you as to what is applicable now and what will be applicable a year and a half later from now. So, I never thought when I launched jewelry that, is it a good time? That was not my thought. Is it a good piece of jewelry? Yes, that's my thought. And how can I create it? And there are so many more things to think of than, is this the right time?
Well, a question which is not in that spirit, but nevertheless is interesting. Nada Sayeg is asking, what type of jewelry sells most? Earrings or rings, etc.?
Bracelets, earrings, and necklaces, tiaras and gloves, and belts. I've done all kinds of things. So I don't restrict myself that I'm only going to do a brooch or this. I walk the whole, gamut of. I want to do geometric pieces also, and.
Irene in London is asking, how much would it cost to commission a simple design from you?
You have to just connect with us, and we can take this forward.
Okay, good. So your email address is on your website.
It's bgoenka@binagoenka.com, and that's it. Just connect with us. You're welcome.
Amog Chachad is asking, how many pieces on average do you make per month, handmade?
I don't make it. Per month means in 4 years, maybe one piece. And, like that. So each craftsman has junior craftsmen below him, and his piece I know that it's going to get ready after 2 years. So I'm not going to. So lots of pieces are in production, and slowly they're being worked on. And then some which are almost, you have these who are already born and have reached 3 years, and, some are, so like that. The journey is long, because first of all, I have to find the material, and then I have to put all the material together, get everything that is required for that design. And then, we can start production, and it's a long process. I have to collect that much material. I've done something really interesting that, I did a Varmala series, which I must talk about. And the Varmala series was very interesting because I kept buying rubies and rubies and rubies. And I just kept buying and buying and buying, and thousands of carats of rubies. Finally, my assistant asked me in my factory, "Ma'am, we are buying too many rubies. What are we going to do with them?" And that's the time I started making the flowers. And then I endlessly kept making flowers. And then I kept correcting the flowers, got the backs ready. And then finally, one fine day, I put the Varmala together. And that's, I've never been able to do that even for my own family members who wanted it. It's not been possible.
So as the lockdown eases, Bina, how do you think your work patterns will change, and how will your work change in the way that you present jewellery? So, for example, in your store in the Grand Hyatt, Mumbai, presumably you're going to have to be very, very careful about hygiene, disinfecting jewellery,
Yes.
Careful about handling jewellery.
Sure. So actually, David, when you came to my store, you realized that we are not like a normal jewelry store. We only by appointment. We invite our customers to come over, and that customer realizes that they're the only people who are going to be coming over that day. And so we are very, very thorough in preparing for the customer. We know that the customers don't come with too much of time. They have a limited amount of time, and we have to maximize what we achieve in that time. And so I don't think that will be a problem. Our jewelry is regularly steamed and with hot air, and
And then in the atelier, how will work practices change? And presumably you have the issue of social distancing, for example.
So I have a 5,000 square feet factory and 60 people, which includes, so everybody has separate rooms, and it's one man per floor or per row, which is a long row of maybe 20 seats. So one man here, one man there. Earlier, we were utilizing that many rows only because we had this great idea that we want to get many craftsmen, which didn't happen. So I have a number of rows, luckily, which are empty, which I'm going to have them to shift backward.
The comment from Joanna Hardy, earrings are doing very well because we're all talking via Zoom, so we can see them, right? So absolutely, yes. A questioner was asking about your work-life balance, how you coordinate it, because you spend a lot of time in London as well. So how do you sort of get the balance right between work pressures and family pressures, particularly traveling as you do?
So first of all, hi Joanna. Hi Joanna, I hope you're well. And of course, I travel a lot. And how do I balance India and London? Is every time I want to escape from India, I go to London. And I have lots of work piled up over there for me. My biggest pleasure is how much work is there to do. So even when I'm coming back to India, and even when I'm in London, I get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's the time my factory starts over here. And as much as I've tried to explain to them that only contact me London time, 8 o'clock, they just don't get it. So, I'm awake from 4 o'clock and then I'm sleeping at 11:30, 12. So it's like a very hectic time. But I finish with my factory at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, London time. And then I'm, sometimes I have meetings before that. Most of the time I have meetings after that also. And the beauty about London is that once you come back home, you're very much you're in solitude, and you can do exactly, you can let your mind focus on a lot of things, even a walk. These are all not things which are possible in India. You can't just walk out onto the street and, so, and by the time you reach home and beat the traffic, you're so tired that.
I guess India has other inspirations, doesn't it? The color,
it's the land of craftsmanship, it's the land of gems, it's the land of everything that is, exaggerated and.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, could you tell us finally a little bit about what you're working on now? Just elaborate a little bit further on the pieces you're developing now and that you expect to develop, and also about innovation, how you want to be different going forward.
So I want to be, there's an elephant that I'm working on, and he's also taken a lot of time. So it's a natural emerald, it's a natural pearl in the center, and his ears are of natural pearls. And he's got, his tusks are made of irregular clam, broke clam pearl. And that's what I'm working on. I've been working on for so long. So the pearls are almost 5 to 6 mm in size, which that is like a dot. So, to have them placed and, to have the cups made for those pearls, and the ears of the emerald, the ears of the elephant are on terminal, and they're moving. And so I'm trying to keep as much movement as possible. And it's, I've gone out of my, every time you work on something difficult and it's your challenging space, and then you conquer it and you want to walk the next step of the pyramid. So, this is my moment.
Well, we've reached the hour. So thank you so much, Bina. I've really enjoyed our conversation. We've covered a lot of ground, your whole journey, and you've been very open about what inspires you. And I hope that's been illuminating for the people who have joined us today. We've had a very good audience again. And I wish to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, David. And I also want to say that whenever next we get an opportunity, maybe we can do part 2 of this conversation where so much has been left unsaid because of our time duration. And so hope to see you all very soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Very good. And
thank you everybody from India for spending this time with us, taking this time out of your busy schedules. There are people who have gotten up in New York and come in online, and from Canada. So I wanted to London and Bahrain and Oman and everywhere in the world, Dubai. And so I want to thank every single person today who's made this effort for us. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Stay safe. Bye bye for now.
Bye.